Let's talk about some issues now, and since you've raised the rebuilding effort in Iraq as one of them, let's talk about how Congress has, in your view, handled some of the major issues that unfolded on your watch. The Iraq War, the vote to authorize the president to use force if he so chose in Iraq. How thoughtful do you think that debate was, number one? And number two, did Nancy Pelosi persuade House Democrats to, as a majority of House Democrats did, vote against that resolution?
I think Nancy Pelosi's position, there was a great element of moral persuasion there. But there are many of us who, of course, were definitely against the war. Most of us who did vote to go to Afghanistan and felt that was quite proper. We had a clear target. We asked the Taliban to give up bin Laden, and they said no. And, I mean, it was clearly the things we needed to do. So I think only one person voted against the Afghanistan, well, that's Barbara Lee. But when it came to the war in Iraq, 120 Democrats, I think, voted against it. And I'm proud to count Nancy among them, because given her position, she could have waffled out. But she didn't, and she voted against it too.
Did she work to persuade Democrats to vote that way?
There was no arm twisting, no great, no, they didn't. It was one of those votes where it was what you call a conscience vote. There was no party position really taken on it, no party position. But there was an understanding. And Nancy, used to use the word liberal. Folks get upset about that sometimes. I don't. But progressive. Nancy is a progressive. She came from the progressive wing. She was supported by people like me, Len Woolsey, a whole lot about progressives in her run for the leadership. So she doesn't, I don't think, shy away from being called a progressive. It's to her credit that she's brought all the elements together and gotten a lot of discipline and gotten both the progressives and the conservatives to vote on certain ways to make points that Democrats need to make in opposition to Republicans. But that war, no, she did not twist arms. There was no party position. But her moral stance did influence people, sure.
Education is one of your absolute priority issues in your time as a member of Congress here. How do you think Congress has dealt with the federal role in education? There was a move at one point to abolish the Department of Education. That is gone. That doesn't come up anymore. President Bush has come up with this program, No Child Left Behind, which is meant to set some standards. Has Congress's embrace of education as a federal responsibility actually grown since you have been in Congress?
Yes, that when I came to Congress, there was no Department of Education. It was created after I came here, and I was certainly one of the major supporters of that effort. And it's very much needed. Law was long overdue. It should be pointed out that even now, the federal government's contribution to overall education funding in the United States of America is less than 8% of the total amount. States and local governments fund most of education. That even when you throw in higher education, which gets more federal money proportionally. So we're not doing very much when you compare us to the other industrialized nations. My argument is that we should move that as fast as possible to at least 25%, because the federal government is paying 25%. You still have 75% control by local and states. For those people who fear that more federal money means control, it does not. But with a small amount, we have a lot of influence, and President Bush has cleverly, I give it to him, he's cleverly made that a centerpiece of his administration and gotten away with a lot of, by rhetoric and promotion, gotten a lot of credit, and that's the only thing out there now. Democrats don't have anything really to compete with No Child Left Behind at this point, unfortunately. When President Clinton took office, the polls showed that the perception of the American voters with respect to which party was most in favor of education gave the Democrats a 32% lead. They felt Democrats definitely were most. In the course of his 8 years, and I blame this mostly on his Secretary of Education, who was a very nice person, but a small state governor, a small thinking guy, and his little incremental approach, he didn't seize the initiative and deal with the education crisis. He was very much against school construction, school construction and repair and modernization with computers and all that I felt was very much needed as a boost. It was not the answer to education, but it would be a physical manifestation of the support of the federal government, which would lead other people to come in with greater enthusiasm. And he didn't do it. He resisted all the way, Secretary of Education Riley. It was a disaster. When Clinton left office, the perception was Republicans and Democrats equally support education. In 1 year, Bush had moved that to a big percentage of people perceiving that Republicans support education aid more than Democrats. So it's been a disaster for the Democratic Party not to have been more creative, more imaginative, not to have been willing to go with big projects, and school construction would have been one, less complicated. We'd free up money at the local level if they didn't have to spend the money for construction and repair and computers. It'd be freed up to go into other things, and they can choose whether they want to put in teacher salaries or other kind of innovative programs. I made that argument, for the whole Clinton administration. And at the last meeting the Congressional Black Caucus had with him, he did say he personally authorized $1.2 billion to go into the budget for school construction and repair. And it went in, and Bush, when he came in, tried to take it out, and there was so much of a hubbub, some outcry out there until he had to leave it in there, because it was not just the Black Caucus or a minority thing. There's a need for that kind of support all over. So education, given the fact that it has such a central role in our modern economy, our military, everything, we are being challenged by people who know the value of education. I mean, India, China, they are challenging us economically and in terms of world leadership, to say nothing of Russia. We ignore the fact that the Soviet Union always, for the last 40 years, they built a first-rate education system. But these people have millions of people, China with its billions, if they create a middle class, which is 1/4 of the population, it's greater than all of our population. We boast about having 300 million. That's nothing. China has a middle class that's going to be 300 million. Japan, all of Japan is considered a middle class state. I mean, they don't have any lower class when you look at it closely. And that's the role that's where we should be going. How do you do that? Only education. Only education puts people in a position to become productive, to take care of their own interests, and also make some kind of contribution to society. We keep backing away from that kind of commitment.
You mentioned President Clinton because he was so instrumental in so many legislative battles. What impact on the Congress and on the ability of Congress to function as well as it should, what impact, if any, do you think the impeachment of President Clinton had?
Well, it ruined the end of his administration in terms of so much time and energy had to be focused on that. I think a lot of initiatives that might have taken place didn't take place. I think some mistakes that were made would not have been made. I think Clinton was a great president. I think Hillary was a great first lady. I think Hillary was a great senator. I'm a supporter of the Clintons, but nevertheless, I think that there were some situations there which I think the Monica Lewinsky case and the way Gingrich handled it just knocked them off balance, and they couldn't get certain things done. One of the things I think they followed up on is that, as they say on the corner, they were okey-doked and suckered in by Newt Gingrich's call for a balanced budget, and they became the champions of a balanced budget, and they were beating their chests proudly, saying, not only will they have a balanced budget, we're going to have a surplus. We had a $200 billion surplus. That's the money that should have been going into education, not all of it, but just a small portion into education. It should have been going into programs to help the poor in the healthcare disparities. There are a number of ways in which the Democratic Party could have shored up its base. We talk a lot about the Republican Party base, the church base, the right wing. Democrats didn't do anything for their base while we were boasting about, look, we're going to have a balanced budget, we're going to have a surplus, so what? And Bush came in right away and showed that we're going to spend money to take care of our base and make sure our base is happy so we can win re-election. I mean, that's oversimplifying, but I think it was a great mistake to let Gingrich suck us into being preoccupied with balancing the budget and proving that we are fiscal conservatives, you know. It went overboard, like the golden mean of Aristotle. It went to extremes. We could have done less than $200 billion surplus and taken care of some interests of those Democrats that I represent who got left out.